Part 35. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 341. I sat up suddenly from the bed. Listen carefully to what's going on next door. The sound insulation effect of this hotel is very poor, and you can clearly hear what's going on next door. But there was no sound except the sound of the door opening and closing next door. Just when I was at a loss, Miao Fengluan suddenly pulled the corner of my clothes and whispered, "I can give it a try." I was stunned for a moment, and then I thought of Miao Fengluan's ability. I nodded at her and said, "Go to the next room and see what's going on." Miao Fengluan nodded, then sat on the edge of the bed. Just as he was about to use his ability to travel, he was interrupted by Master Gui. "I'll just go." After saying that, the ghost master turned into a wisp of evil wind and roared out of the window. About 5 minutes passed, and a dark wind blew through the window, and the figure of Master Ghost appeared in front of me. Master Gui's expression was a little serious, and his expression was extremely ugly. I asked, "How was it?" Master Gui took a deep breath and said, "He is draining his soul." When I heard this, my expression changed. There was indeed something wrong with this man. At this moment, a woman's painful scream suddenly came from the next room. My expression condensed, and I rushed out of the door without even thinking about it. I have to subdue that man, because he must be related to the female dormitory building. In other words, he knew the whereabouts of Gu Luan Sha. Miao Fengluan and Master Gui quickly followed out. When he rushed out of the room, his steps hesitated. Because, the entire corridor has changed. The originally tidy corridor was now dilapidated, with the walls peeling off, revealing dark green mold inside, and a bit of fly ash filling the air, as if there had been a fire. How is this going? Master Ghost and I looked at each other, and we both saw doubts in each other's eyes. Master Gui pondered for a moment and said, "If I'm not wrong, this is the art of aversion to victory. This effect can be created by making small changes to the building." I asked, "Are we in an illusion or reality now?" Master Gui shook his head and replied, "I don't know. It may be an illusion or reality. Everything that happens here will cause harm to us." After hearing this sentence, I realized that I had fallen into that man's trap. I couldn't help scratching my head with regret and said, "I was careless." I looked around and what I wanted to do now was escape from here. Otherwise, no one knows what will happen later. I came to the door of the next room, hesitated, and opened the door. The room was dark without any light, so I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight to illuminate the room. The scene inside the room is the same as the corridor outside. The furniture was burned to a dark brown color and the television set was burned to a crisp. But I noticed that there were no windows in the entire room, which meant that the entire room was airtight. It's almost impossible to leave. I walked out of the room, my expression becoming a little serious. Master Gui was also trying to leave here while I was checking the room. But his soul body couldn't penetrate the wall at all. I looked at the scene around me and fell into deep thought. After a while, I raised my head and said, "If it is really the art of aversion to victory, we can leave here as long as we find objects that affect the feng shui here." As soon as I said this sentence, there were squeaking sounds in my ears. I frowned and looked towards the dark corridor, only to see that the doors along the entire corridor were slowly opening. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanbao. Chapter 342. Wave after wave of biting cold wind poured out from every room. For a moment, the whole corridor was filled with a strong wind, and the dust that had been silent for a long time was blown up by the wind, and I was instantly fascinated. When the dust fell silent again, the entire corridor was covered with people. Dolls wearing different clothes stood neatly in the corridor. Their expressions were stiff, their eyes were gray, and there was no trace of life in their bodies. Although their arrangement was neat, their movements were extremely weird. Some were kneeling on their knees with their arms folded at an incredible angle, some had their heads rotated 180 degrees, leaving only the back of their heads, and some had eyeballs drooping on their faces, with iron springs acting as traction ropes. Let the eyeballs drop. Master Gui and I protected Miao Fengluan behind us. He looked at these dolls with vigilance. These figures are old and young, male and female, with two eye-catching blushes on their wooden cheeks. At this moment, a clicking sound came from the air. The puppets started to move. They straightened their twisted limbs and facial features, and then all turned their eyes to look at me. A chill went straight from the soles of my feet to Tianling Gai. The scene in front of me was so weird that ordinary people would have been scared out of their wits. The dolls were swaying towards us. Their movements were stiff, as if all the bones in their bodies were covered with rust, and as if their limbs were being held up by invisible thin lines. Sudden. The speed of the dolls' movements suddenly accelerated, and they were in front of me in the blink of an eye. I picked up the thunder Jew and blasted it directly towards the puppet closest to me. Thunder and lightning exploded, and the puppet was blown away by me. Due to inertia, he bumped into a large number of dolls during his flight. I took a quick glance and saw that there were about 50 dolls in the entire corridor. I originally thought that the blow I just struck would defeat the puppet, but what I never expected was that the puppet stood up staggeringly again. Then he attacked me again. Master Gui also took action at this time. Countless black threads spread out from his body. These threads are as thin as a mosquito's feet and as sharp as a blade, exuding a deep chill in the darkness. The threads whizzed towards these dolls, hitting their chests. Something surprising happened to me. These sharp silk threads cannot penetrate the doll. Master Gui also looked a little surprised. I don't know how many times more troublesome this technique is than the puppet technique. Master Ghost said. Grandpa once told me. Puppetry can be used on living people, corpses, and dead objects, but these puppets are not controlled by anyone. I took a step forward, activated my soul-stealing blood hand, and grabbed a doll. The bloody hand sank into his body, and the next moment, I felt the soul existing in the doll. I looked overjoyed and pulled the soul out of the doll. The puppet fell to the ground with a crash. I looked at the soul that was separated from me, and my expression changed drastically. Because the soul had turned into a fierce ghost and rushed towards me. I picked up the thunder weapon and beat it to pieces. I took a step back and distanced myself from the puppets. It's a bit tricky right now. If you extract their souls, you will get more than 50 ghosts. If you don't do this, ordinary attacks will not be able to cause harm to them. I looked at Mr. Ghost and said, I need your help. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 343. Master Gui looked at me doubtfully and asked, What can I do for you? I put my mouth to Master Ghost's ear and whispered a few words. After hearing this, Master Gui asked with some doubt, Is it really okay to do this? Just as I was about to answer, I heard the strong wind roaring in my ears. I ducked out of the way, picked up the thunder weapon, and directly blasted away the sneak attack puppet. It doesn't matter if he can do it or not. Let's talk about it after trying it. Master Gui looked serious, nodded, and said, Then you have to be ready. As soon as he finished speaking, countless threads shot out from Master Ghost's body again. The Ghost Master waved his hand casually, and the threads were twisted into a ball-like twists. Upon seeing this, I immediately activated my soul-stealing blood hand and grabbed the black thread. Master Gui glanced at me, and I nodded to him. Master Ghost looked at the puppets in front of him, raised his right hand high, and then suddenly lowered it. Immediately afterwards, I felt the black thread twisted into a hemp rope in my hand jump out directly. These black silk threads have been soaked in scarlet blood after passing through my hands, turning blood red directly. A black silk thread as thick as a hemp rope suddenly bloomed from the top, like a blooming bloody flower. Countless bloody threads were like lasers, penetrating throughout the corridor. For a time, the entire corridor seemed to be enveloped by one big net after another. I stared closely at the dolls. I saw that the blood-colored thread penetrated the doll's chest effortlessly. Then the second doll, the third doll. These dolls are like candied haws, pierced with wooden skewers. When I saw this scene, I looked overjoyed. It seemed that my decision was right. The blood spread from the soul-stealing blood hand also has the effect of drawing souls. But it would be too laborious for me to deal with these dolls one by one. The black silk thread of the Ghost Master is a large-scale attack. As long as the blood is attached to the black silk thread, these dolls will definitely be defeated easily. Soon, all the puppets in the corridor were wiped out. Even the imprisoned soul in the doll cannot escape. The dolls were lying in various directions in the corridor. Looking around, they looked extremely messy. For a moment, silence returned to the corridor again. At this time, Master Gui suddenly said, "I didn't expect your brain to be quite useful." I smiled slightly and said nothing. Miao Fengluan took a step forward and came to me, staring at the dark corridor with starry eyes. She didn't frown, and her expression was a little serious. Seeing this, I asked, "What's wrong?" Miao Fengluan stretched out her slender hand, pointed into the darkness, and said, "There seems to be someone over there." As soon as he finished speaking, a man's eerie and cold voice came from deep in the corridor. "You could have survived, but you didn't know whether to live or die and came here." Tap tap tap. The dull sound of footsteps suddenly sounded. The footsteps got closer and closer, and a man appeared in front of me. When I saw the man's appearance clearly, his eyes became a little cold. "It's that man." The man's face was ashen, his expression was numb, and there was no sparkle in his eyes. The man's dull eyes glanced at us, and then stopped at Miao Fengluan. The man was stunned for a moment, and then his whole body started to tremble. His expression became a little excited, and his numb eyes were full of madness. He stretched out his hand, pointed at Miao Fengluan and said crazily, "What a pure soul! Kill you. She will be able to recover." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 344. As soon as these words came out, I directly pulled Miao Fengluan behind me to protect him, and then looked at the man coldly. Master Gui's eyes were full of anger after hearing this. He raised his hand and was about to attack the man. I quickly stopped him and shook my head at him. "Without knowing the strength of the opponent, you will suffer a loss if you take action rashly." Master Gui understood instantly and put his hand down. I looked at the man and said, "If I'm not wrong, everything you did was for your childhood sweetheart, right?" As soon as he said this, the man's expression froze, and then he narrowed his eyes and looked at me with an unfriendly expression. He pursed his lips slightly and asked, "How do you know?" I looked at Sun Wenqing and said nothing. From the beginning, I doubted the identity of the person in front of me. What he just said has undoubtedly proven his identity. Especially that sentence, "She can recover." From this point of view, everything Sun Wenqing did was to resurrect his dead childhood sweetheart. When Sun Wenqing saw that I was silent, he shrugged helplessly and said, "So what if I let you know? I've killed enough people, and I'm not far behind a few of you." He slowly took a step back, and a huge black figure slowly walked out of the darkness. When I saw the black figure clearly, I was stunned in place. It was a tall, burly figure. He was dressed in battle armor, holding a spear, and looked like an ancient general. Sun Wenqing didn't talk nonsense. With a wave of his hand, the huge puppet walked towards us with heavy steps. The corridor shook with every step, and countless dust fell from the roof. The aura exuded by the general puppet makes people feel frightened. Sudden. The general's puppet thrust out his spear. The spear roared towards me, and I ducked sideways. I only heard a bang, and a hole appeared where I was. Seeing this scene, my expression became extremely serious. This general puppet is so powerful, it looks like it will be another tough battle. Before I could stand firm, I heard the strong wind roaring in my ears, and the spear appeared in front of me like a ghost. At this critical moment, countless black threads wrapped around the spear, preventing it from moving forward at all. The spear was only 2 centimeters away from the tip of my nose. If Mr. Ghost had been a step too late, my head would have been smashed. I quickly distanced myself from the general puppet. I picked up the bloody 9-fold thunderbolt and blasted it towards the general's puppet. I originally thought that the bloody thunderbolt would easily penetrate the general's chest. But what I didn't expect was that the bloody thunderdew only exploded on the surface. Sun Wenching's joking voice rang in my ears. This doll has no soul and your hand can no longer cause any harm to it. Soulless. When I heard this, I looked shocked. How can one move without a soul? Sun Wenching's figure emerged from the darkness. He looked at me and said, "This doll is something that has been passed down from generation to generation in my Lu family. How can it be dealt with by ordinary people? Being looked down upon by my peers makes me unhappy." I looked at Sun Wenching coldly and said nothing. Sun Wenching waved again, and the general puppet rushed towards me. With a serious look on my face, I activated the Heaven Secret Barrel, and 4 golden blank Heaven Secret Barrels floated around me. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 345. When Master Gui saw the secret code of heaven, his expression changed slightly, and he asked with some surprise, "You actually understood the secret code of heaven?" I nodded towards Mr. Ghost. Master Gui took a breath of cold air and said, "Your boy's talent is really high. He was able to comprehend the inheritance of the talented city god in just a few days." Master Gui's words surprised me a little. You know, ever since I got to know him, he has either been hurting me or on the way to hurting me. When has he ever taken the initiative to praise me? But what Master Gui said next made me speechless for a moment. "But compared to this young master, you are still relatively weak." Sun Wenching also looked a little surprised when he saw Tianmi Lu. "Unexpectedly, you are the descendant of Tianfu city god." Sun Wenching's tone was a little serious, and his eyebrows were full of scruples. But when he saw Miao Fengluan, the scruples disappeared completely, replaced by a desperate look. The color of madness. "What about the Tianfu city god? Even if I am the enemy of the whole world, I will resurrect her." After that, he controlled the general puppet to attack me again. I stretched out my hand, and the 4 talismans floating around me flew towards the general puppet. I quickly drew the 5 elements talisman. The wooden talisman flashed with a dazzling green light, and then endless vines burst out from the talisman. When Sun Wenching saw this scene, he formed a seal with his hands, raised the spear in his hand and cut off the incoming vines. I used the water rune again to add power to the wood rune. The vines that had been cut off healed instantly, and then wrapped around the general's puppet. Sun Wenching controlled the general puppet to deal with it calmly. Master Gui took action from one side, and the 2 of us attacked each other but did not gain the slightest upper hand. The situation on the field is not good for us. If this continues, I'm afraid we will all die here. I glanced at Miao Fengluan behind me and made a decision in my mind. I took a deep breath and slowly closed my left eye. The right eye was gradually saturated with ink like black, and the black barrier instantly enveloped several of us. I waved my hand casually, and the fire talisman and the earth talisman were superimposed. I shouted loudly, and the rocks roared towards the puppet general mixed with fire. The puppet general waved the spear in his hand and resisted with all his strength. I condensed my expression and focused all my attention on the chest of the puppet general. The next moment, there was a cracking sound in the air. I can manipulate all the power in the barrier and even transfer it, but the time for manipulation is very limited. And this space is also directly proportional to my own strength. If the other party is too powerful, I won't be able to get any benefits within this space. A vine as thick as an arm spread from the chest of the puppet general. Sun Wencheng's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. I stretched out my hand and shook it in the air, and then, vines grew from all the joints between the limbs and body of the general puppet. Click, click. The sound of the puppet's shattering body was particularly clear at this moment. Because I transferred the power of the wooden rune into the puppet's body, that is to say, the vines can break his indestructible body from the puppet's body. The movement of the general puppet was restricted, and the fire mixed with the rocks hit his burly body hard. Master Ghost also saw the right opportunity and manipulated the black silk thread to penetrate into the puppet's body through the cracks on the puppet's surface. Just when the general puppet was about to break, the familiar pain came again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 346. The evil spirit comes back. The ability of the right eye is undoubtedly powerful. But it's also fatal to me. If I want to fully master this power, I must place the Dora evil star in my life palace. I looked at the general doll that was about to be broken. I couldn't just let it go. I had to destroy this doll completely. Thinking of this, I gritted my teeth, endured the severe pain, and used the power of my right eye. Click, click, click. The general puppet was finally dismembered under the attack of Master Ghost and me. There was just a crash, and the general puppet was torn into pieces, with its broken limbs and arms scattered on the ground. At the moment when the general's puppet was broken, Sun Wencheng spurted out a mouthful of blood. My eyes went dark, my legs were trembling, and a large amount of cold sweat slowly flowed down my cheeks. Miao Fengluan quickly came to my side and stretched out her hand to help me. Lusu, are you okay? I opened my mouth but didn't speak, because I couldn't say a word now. Sun Wencheng's situation is not much better. He struggled to stand up, touched the blood at the corner of his mouth, and looked at me coldly. I admit that I underestimated the enemy, but today, you must die here. As he spoke, Sun Wencheng took out a small wooden box from his pocket. Just as he was about to open it, a wooden bird flew in front of him. When Sun Wencheng saw this wooden bird, his expression changed drastically. He dragged his tired body and turned around in a hurry to leave. Seeing this scene, I was a little confused for a moment. But if you think about it carefully, the thing that makes Sun Wencheng so nervous must be about his girlfriend. After Sun Wencheng left, the corridor returned to its original state. Master Gui came to me, frowned when he saw me like this, and asked, "Why is there such a powerful evil spirit in your body?" I smiled bitterly and shook my head, saying nothing. Master Gui let out a long sigh and said, "Don't die." After saying that, Master Gui stretched out his hand and gently covered my forehead. The next moment, I felt the evil energy flowing in my body spread from my forehead to his hands. The Ghost Master frowned and his figure swayed. At this moment, a hint of warmth came from behind. The evil spirit flowing in the body is slowly disappearing. After a while, the pain caused by the evil spirit's backlash disappeared without a trace. Master Gui also let go of his hand. He took a step back and almost fell down. When I saw this, I said to him, "Thank you." Master Gui looked at me lightly and said, "Don't thank me, I'm afraid Fengluan will be sad if you die." I smiled slightly, knowing that these words were just Master Gui's words. Master Gui changed the subject and asked, "What should we do next?" I pondered for a moment and replied, "Go to the dormitory." If I guessed correctly, the place where Sun Wenqing resurrected his girlfriend was in the abandoned girls' dormitory building. As for Sun Wenqing leaving in such a hurry, something must have happened over there in the dormitory. The Ghost Master nodded. In this way, we rushed to the abandoned girls' dormitory building. The dormitory building stood quietly in the night. The moon in the sky was not as bright as it was at the beginning, and the moonlight pouring down also looked foggy, making it difficult to see the reality clearly. We got in at a dilapidated fence. There were so many grasses in front of us that we couldn't tell the direction at all. Under the dim moonlight, I finally saw the entrance. Without any hesitation, I walked in with Master Gui and Miao Fengluan. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanba. Chapter 347. The lobby on the first floor is extremely messy. The peeling green wall covering was mixed with the fragments of the grooming mirror, which sparkled under the light of the flashlight. The sheets and quilts in the dormitory's duty room were drooped beside the bed, and their surfaces were yellow, moldy, or even rotten. I looked around and finally focused on the stairs. It will definitely be very troublesome if you have to search for it layer by layer. I looked at Mr. Ghost and said, I have to trouble you to investigate the situation. Master Gui glanced at me reluctantly and complained, I have been so unlucky for 8 lifetimes that I know someone like you. Although he complained, Master Gui still took a step forward. Brother Tiansheng. Wait a minute. Miao Fengluan suddenly stopped Master Gui. Master Gui turned around, looked at Miao Fengluan with some confusion, and asked, what's wrong? Miao Fengluan thought for a moment and said, Brother Tiansheng, it's better for me to go. You're searching layer by layer. Time is a bit too slow. Although the Ghost Master is a ghost, if he wants to search the entire dormitory building, he still needs to float around, which is really time-consuming. Miao Fengluan is different. With her fugue ability, she can go wherever she wants. Master Gui was silent for a moment, feeling that what Miao Fengluan said made sense. Then he nodded to Miao Fengluan and said, well, you have to pay attention to your safety. Miao Fengluan blinked her star-like eyes, then smiled slightly and said, Brother Tiansheng, don't worry. No one can catch me. What Miao Fengluan said is right. Even if she is discovered by others, she can use Shinayan to leave without anyone noticing. Just like that, Miao Fengluan used his divine movement and began to inspect the entire dormitory building. During this process, Master Gui and I waited patiently. I looked at Mr. Ghost and asked, what are those black threads of yours? Mr. Ghost glanced at me indifferently and replied, City God's inheritance, Temple Magic Soul Silk. At this point, Master Gui's expression suddenly became a little weird, and then he said something incomprehensible. I don't think I can stay with Fengluan for much longer. I was stunned and asked, what's wrong? Master Gui looked at me and replied, there are still some things that I need to do. This is my mission as a family member. I looked at Mr. Ghost and said word by word, tell me if you have anything, and I will help you. Master Gui rolled his eyes and replied, don't worry about me, just take care of yourself first. While we were talking, Miao Fengluan woke up. She stood up suddenly, looking a little frightened. I quickly asked, what's wrong? Miao Fengluan took a deep breath and said in shock, 9th floor, they are on the 9th floor. Them. It seems that Sun Wenqing has met Feng Ming and Li Yushan. I didn't dare to neglect and rushed towards the 9th floor. On the way, I asked Miao Fengluan to tell me in detail about the situation on the 9th floor. Miao Fengluan thought for a while, organized her words, and said, the 9th floor is very strange. The entire floor is made of wood. In addition, there are all kinds of small animals. Small animals? I asked doubtfully. Miao Fengluan nodded and replied, yes, they are small animals, but these animals are made of wood. There was a room, which was very strange. There was a palm-sized ancient wooden pagoda in the room, and I saw a very beautiful woman in that small ancient pagoda, but that woman was a puppet. As for the others, I didn't see them. While we were talking, we arrived at the 9th floor. The scene in front of me was exactly as Miao Fengluan said, very strange, very strange. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 348. The corridor was very dark and I couldn't see my fingers. I could only raise my phone and use its weak flashlight to look at the situation on the 9th floor. I looked around cautiously, fearing that something might appear. I looked at Miao Fengluan and asked, "Where is the room you mentioned?" Miao Fengluan pointed into the darkness and said, "It's right in front." I nodded and walked forward. The entire corridor was very quiet, so quiet that it made people feel panicked. You could hear your own dull footsteps every step you took. Blah blah blah. The sound of gears turning suddenly came to my ears. I hesitated, staring warily into the darkness. Suddenly, the wind roared in my ears, as if something was flying towards me in the darkness. Immediately afterwards, a dark figure broke into the weak light circle of the flashlight. I turned sideways to avoid the black shadow, but the black shadow stagnated in the air and flew towards me again. Just when I was paying full attention to the black figure in front of me, the wind roared behind me again, and several black figures rushed out of the darkness again. The Ghost Master's expression condensed, and he stretched out his hand, and soul threads shot out from his palm, binding all the black shadows running around in the air. I used the dim light of the flashlight to finally see clearly what the black shadow was. That's a human head. A human skull carved from wood. There are large and small gears rotating in the human skull. The skulls and teeth of these people were shaking crazily. Seeing this scene, I was extremely horrified. This victory-wearing technique is so amazing. When Master Gui saw the carved wooden human skull, he looked stunned, and then said in a serious tone, "This is a human skull. Head evil? What is this?" The Ghost Master explained, "The head shaman is a person whose head has been cut off. Before death, all the resentment in his heart is concentrated on the head. Once the head shame is formed, it will be indestructible, and the person targeted by the head will be indestructible. I will chase you to the ends of the earth." After listening to Master Gui's explanation, I immediately realized a problem. Severed head. Then these human skulls are carved from wood. Could it be possible that there is a human-headed evil living in this man's skull? At this moment, the strong wind roared in my ears again. I turned around suddenly and saw countless black figures speeding towards me. As soon as I thought about it, a blank golden secret book appeared in front of me. I stretched out my hand to draw the talisman, and a 5 thunder talisman was drawn by me in an instant. I picked up the swordju, pointed at the 5 thunder talisman, and shouted loudly. Boom! The dull thunder sounded from the corridor, and there were even echoes in the empty corridor. Blue lightning burst out from the 5 thunder talisman, and powerful thunder and lightning rushed through the air. These heads didn't know how to dodge and rushed straight towards the thunder and lightning. Crackling. Thunder and lightning exploded, and powerful lightning spread throughout the corridor. These human skulls plopped to the ground like swarms of flies sprayed with insecticide. Fortunately, thunder and lightning have an effect on these human-headed demons. After the 5 thunder talisman was cast, the air was filled with the smell of burning sawdust. I picked up the flashlight and pointed it in front of me. I saw densely chopped and burnt human skulls paving a path like cobblestones. Seeing that nothing else happened, I planned to move on. As soon as he took a step, the skulls of those people on the ground rose into the air. Then it swirled in the corridor like a small whirlwind. I stepped back continuously, keeping distance from them. When these people's skulls stopped moving, what appeared in front of me shocked me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanba. Chapter 349. Those countless human skulls just now were assembled together and turned into a huge human head. This head directly blocked the entire corridor. In addition, there was a rustling sound in the air. A small wooden snake crawled out of the window frame on one side, followed by various small wooden animals. Dogs, cats, mice. But I didn't have time to marvel, because the huge wooden carved human head in front of me made me feel dangerous. Crunch, crunch. The huge head began to slowly open its mouth. This move of the human head seemed to be a warm-up, and the next second, the big mouth of the human head began to close crazily. The frequency of closing is jaw-dropping. The head was like a bulldozer, crushing me. I didn't have time to think too much, so I could only use the bloody thunder technique to resist. I have used the heavenly secret pill too many times. If I use it again, I am afraid I will be exhausted. The bloody thunderbolt blasted straight towards the huge human head. The lightning penetrated into the head, and the next moment, countless miserable howls came out of the big mouth of the head. But the head showed no intention of stopping. Hearing the screams, I instantly understood why the bloody thunderbolt was unable to defeat this huge human head. This huge human-headed demon is composed of countless small human-headed demons. In other words, there is more than one soul in this huge human-headed evil spirit. One strike of thunder can only kill a small part of them. Recalling the densely packed human heads on the ground just now, I couldn't help but feel a little scared. If you want to defeat this huge human-headed evil, you have to spend many times the energy and time. Looking at the head-shattering creature so close at hand, suddenly I thought of a way. I took a deep breath and activated the power of ghosts. In an instant, a bone-chilling wind spread from all over me. I opened the gate of Hades directly. The door to the underworld was open, and inside was darkness like ink. This huge human-headed demon seemed not to see the gate to the underworld blocking me. Heading straight towards the gate of the underworld. Seeing this scene, I was very happy. Sure enough, this huge human head had no IQ. When the human-headed evil spirit touched the gate of the underworld, it was sucked in instantly. The entire corridor returned to its initial tranquility. As for the remaining small animals, Master Gui and I got rid of them 3 times, 5 times, 5 times and 2 times divided by 2. After doing all this, Miao Fengluan led us to the room she mentioned. I opened the door and what I saw was an altar. There is an ancient wooden pagoda in the center of the altar. The ancient pagoda is about 10 centimeters high, and the carvings are exquisite. Even the fine lines of the tiles are carved out. The ancient wooden pagoda has 9 floors, but I saw a small figure on the 9th floor. There is actually a woman inside. It's just that this woman is about the size of Xiaojhan. Carefully distinguish, it is a lifelike puppet. This Xiaojhan doll is more realistic than the ones I have seen before. I could clearly feel her staring at me. Master Ghost and I looked at each other with shock in our eyes. Master Gui took a breath of cold air and said, "What on earth is this little thing?" At this moment, a childlike laughter suddenly sounded outside the door. When I heard this laughter, my expression changed drastically. It was the ghost baby. He's coming to your door. Sky Coffin. Author, Ching Nian Wanba. Chapter 350. I am really afraid of what will happen. The ghost baby's laughter was different from before. This time there is a bit more hoarseness. I guess it has grown a bit more in such a short period of time. The laughter got closer and closer, followed closely by the sound of the door opening. "Luciu, where are you?" "He's looking for me." I quickly turned off the flashlight. He looked at Master Gui and Miao Fengluan and signaled them not to make any sound. I can't deal with this ghost baby with my current strength. I can hide for a while. The spooky laughter of the ghost baby lingers in my heart like a nightmare. Squeak, squeak. Door after door was opened. Lusu, I know you are here, come out. Footsteps and laughter came closer. At this moment, Miao Fengluan suddenly grabbed my wrist, smiled at me and said, "Don't worry." As she said that, she also held Master Gishao's hand. Miao Fengluan frowned, and the next second a hazy white light enveloped me and Master Gui. Seeing Miao Fengluan's behavior, I couldn't help but shake my head and smile bitterly. How could I forget about Chinayan? The footsteps got closer and closer, then stopped suddenly. I felt a chill in my heart, knowing that the ghost baby was at the door. Immediately afterwards, the door was opened a crack, and a head poked in. When we saw that face, we were stunned for a moment. Not a ghost baby. It turned out to be Zhang Xiai. Zhang Xiai opened the door, looked around the room, and looked happy when he saw the ancient wooden pagoda. At this moment, a pale little foot appeared behind him. Zhang Xiai seemed to feel something. His expression changed slightly, but he did not react in any way. He still walked towards the altar calmly. Seeing this, I looked shocked. I looked around, rummaged around in my pocket to find a coin, and then threw it towards Zhang Xiai. The crisp sound of the coin hitting the ground instantly caught Zhang Xiai's attention. He looked towards the direction where the coin was tossed and nodded slightly, indicating that he had understood my hint. Suddenly, small pale faces with strange smiles poked their heads out from behind Zhang Xiai. I quickly winked at Miao Fengluan and signaled her to cast Chinayan on Zhang Xiai. Miao Fengluan mentally understood and looked at Zhang Xiai. Suddenly, the ghost baby stretched out its pale hand and climbed onto Zhang Xiai's shoulder. Zhang Xiai remained calm and continued to move forward pretending to be calm. The ghost baby stretched out his pale and withered little hand and aimed to poke Zhang Xiai's Tianling cap. At this critical moment, Miao Fengluan's divine concealment took effect. Zhang 11 was breathless, and the ghost infant's movements stagnated. Zhang 11 quickly grabbed the ghost infant's hand and threw it out with all his strength. With a bang, the ghost baby was thrown directly against the wall. Seeing this situation, I wanted to take everyone away. I came to Zhang Xiai, opened my mouth, and told him to leave temporarily and come back later. But Zhang Xiai shook his head at me. He took out a small paper man from his pocket, then took out a piece of my hair and tied it to the paper man. Then he made a secret with both hands and pointed his sword at the paper man. The paper man's body is filled with golden light. Zhang Xiai came to the ancient pagoda in one stride and threw the villain into it. A magical scene happened. The little paper man turned into me and appeared in the ancient pagoda. The ghost baby stood up from the ground unsteadily, looking around with a pair of vicious eyes. When he saw me in the ancient pagoda, his expression changed, and he let out a sinister laugh, and then turned into a wisp of evil wind and penetrated into the ancient pagoda.